So, the purpose of this session this evening is to discuss the concepts and first principles behind Lean and Six Sigma improvement. What I want to do is to explore the genesis of the concepts and how they evolved over the decades, and how did we get to where we are today and the tools and thinking that we have today, and where did it come from? All right, why should it be of any value? I'm going to actually start as well by studying Deming's system of profound knowledge. Could I just at that point, how many of you have explored Deming's system of profound knowledge? Okay, a handful of you. Good. Well, I'll hope you will permit me to repeat some of these things. I'm going to take you through some theories that came from W. Edwards Deming. And those are theories that we use today, and they value and underpin every piece of work that we do. So I'll take you through those. We'll be looking at why, over 3 decades after Deming put together the system of profound knowledge and explained the learning of his life, why those principles are still so valuable in today's world, and are probably going to be even more increasingly valuable in the world of tomorrow. So we'll be looking at that. So we want to get to grips with the fundamentals of variation and understanding why it's critical for all leaders to understand the concepts of variation. Now, I'm not going to ask you the question, how many of you have experienced variation, but I'm going to take you through and I'm going to explain from a first principles point of view how a chief executive's life can be so much better for both his or herself and his business if he understands the concepts of variation. Okay, so we're going to take you through it and we're going to explore why that's important. We'll start to understand that improvement is a belief system supported by some pretty neat tools. But tools without the right thinking are pretty meaningless. And so we'll have a little look through some of those things. And what I would like to do as well at the end of this one is actually try to explore why and how you guys understanding Lean and Six Sigma can and will benefit you in your careers going forward, if you can get to understand the first principles behind where it came from and how it can be used. And so we're going to back right into the first principles and some of the early thinking to get you going on that. Okay, so that's what I intend to do. So the format for the session, introductions we're doing now, something about PMI and our foundation principles, defining Six Sigma process improvement and what it can do, exploring the principles, and then summarising the approach to improvement. But before I do that, something on PMI. So we help companies around the world improve their performance. That's our sole endeavour, is to help improve any company's performance. We do it by providing a strategy for improvement for that organisation. We come up with organisational design, operational improvement consultancy. And what we want to do is when we leave any company, we want to leave the leaders and the company itself with an indelible mark so they can take on and do improvement for themselves. They'll only need PMI for 4 or 5 years, and then hopefully they can walk and do the business for themselves. And that's where we want to be in a place. We work at all levels and all areas and all levels in the business, all functional areas, with every kind of performance challenge. Whether it's I've got a product problem, or whether I've got a people problem, or I've got a marketing problem, you'd be amazed how many of those problems come from not understanding how your system and your business operates. I almost said a word there which I'm trying to avoid using for the time being. We've been around since 1984. We've worked in clients in over 70 countries, and we have with almost 10 languages. We work across all industries and all sectors. And as an example for that, if I was to just look at my diary for the last 2 weeks, I've had the great fortune, and I do mean that, great fortune, of being in Budapest 2 weeks ago, working with one of the world's largest manufacturing organisations, helping their leaders and some of their engineers work together. And then I just recently come back from Nairobi, being in Kenya, with an organisation that does something completely different. They work with the UN, they work with UNICEF, they work with NATO, and they work across all of the most troubled areas of Africa, putting in sites for refugees and for organisations where they're having to build camps. What's the difference between the process of a big manufacturing organisation and the process of an organisation that's serving to help the most troubled peoples in the world? It's all work at the end of the day, and all work is a process. All work is a process. So the conversation we got this evening can apply to whatever sector or whatever industry or whatever business you might be allied to. Okay, good. We're partners to, we specialise in the practical application of Deming's principles. We're partners with the Chartered Quality Institute, so that's the organisation based down in London that is for quality professionals, nice group of people. And I'm really pleased to say that our Greenbelt training programme that we train in is accredited by your fabulous university here, and actually people who attend the Greenbelt programme can get some merits towards their master's degree, which is always a nice thing. So that's really good. So I'm particularly proud of that. So something about me, I'm a partner consultant in PMI. I work with senior leaders to help them transform their businesses. I'm an engineer by background, a mechanical engineer by background. I spent the bulk of my life in the automotive industry. When I left the automotive industry, I was the quality director for a company called Rolls-Royce and Bentley Motor Cars. And I worked on the Volkswagen quality exec out of Wolfsburg. I'm a graduate of WMG. Yeah. So I have to say, it feels like an awful long time ago now. And it will explore. So even after 45 years of operating, the one thing that surprises me every single day is that I learn something new every single day. Sometimes I get surprised, sometimes I get disappointed, but I learn something new every single day. And that's one thing I would like to encourage you guys is to, when you wake up in the morning, challenge yourself to say, what am I going to learn that's new today? So I hope at 7:15 on the 11th, you start to learn maybe something new. Okay? One piece of wisdom I've gained, so come on, sit yourself down, folks. One piece of wisdom I've gained over those 45 years might shock you a little bit, particularly as I'm stood in front of probably some of the brightest people that are currently operating in the UK. You guys are here because you're incredibly bright, right? Well, that's true. Yes, you're here because you're incredibly bright, which is why it's important. But I'm going to share with you a piece of wisdom that I've gained over the last 45 years, and it's this. Never, ever, ever use data to make a decision. Never, ever use data to make a decision. How many of you are moderately surprised by that? Right, okay. I'm going to explain over the next 25, 30 minutes why that is so important. So remember this, and even write it down if you want to. Des Kelly says, never, ever, ever use data to make a decision. Now, how does that come from a guy that's going to talk about Six Sigma? Strange, isn't it? Okay, so let's explore that. Okay, so process improvement principles. I'm just going to take you through some basic primary process improvement principles. And I'm going to give you, first of all, my definition of quality. Now, this is based on my theory. There are dozens of people's theories around as to what the explanation of quality is. But this is one that I use, and I use it because it's an all-encompassing one, and it is this. So my current theory is, quality is delivering everything that the customer needs at minimum cost to society. If I create the most beautiful motor car, but I poison the planet, that's not quality. If I make the most perfect latte in the world, but I shorten the customer's life, that's not good. If I make the most beautiful pizzas in the world, and I make people obese, that's not quality. So I want you to think of quality in a multi-dimensioned perspective. It's not just satisfying the specification. It goes well beyond simply satisfying the specification. Okay? So that is my belief. That's my belief. It is my current theory. Tomorrow I might learn something that will modify that theory. But as I stand today, that's my current theory. Okay? So can you bear that in mind as we continue and share views on this presentation? Now then, I'm going to get you to actively involve in this. As I said, I think I'm stood in front of 35, maybe 40 people of the brightest engineers, certainly the most committed people, engineers and students, here at the University of Warwick. I predict that the vast majority of you will end up being very senior leaders in organisations at some point in your careers. I sincerely hope that's going to be the case. If that's what you desire, you don't have to desire that, but you're going to be senior leaders. So I'm going to ask you a question. Just think for a few moments about the roles of a business leader, someone who's leading a large organisation. Someone who's leading a large organisation. Put yourself in that place. I want you to think about what are one or two of the key things, the key undertakings that senior leader should be exercising day to day. Right? So just think about it. What I want you to do, you've got your pen, I hope. I want you to write those things on a piece of paper. Just write them down on a piece of paper. I don't mind if you use up 3 pieces of paper. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. Write down 2 or 3 things that the senior leaders should be focusing on as they lead their organisations. Happy with that? Any need for further explanation, or can you do that? Right, okay, super, there you go. You can have your piece of paper back. So, write it down in big letters so I can see it. You know it's somewhere in glasses, so you need to print it nice and big so I can see it, and I'll watch from the back down here. Did you not get your pen? Where's the bag of pens gone? We gave Vigelis one job.
I'm an academic, I'm not good at stuff.
Joyous. And over here we've got some guys over here as well. Right. Let me take a handful of them. There we go. Anyone else not got a pen now? Because we will use them again in a moment. Okay. Right. Has everyone documented something on those pieces of paper? No, not everybody yet? Right. So then, let's start at the back. Right, would someone like to shout out a couple of things that they've got and show me their piece of paper to prove that you wrote it down? Okay, let's start at the back. Role of a leader. What are they going to be looking at? That gentleman there, you've got a good smile. Okay.
Increase revenue.
Increase revenue.
Yeah.
Could you argue with that? Okay.
Everyday's activity.
Sorry, look. What's that? Look after the everyday activities.
Is it a daily thing?
Is it a daily thing?
To make revenue every day.
Okay, well, that's an interesting challenge, isn't it? So to increase revenue. And the question there was, isn't that something they do every single day? Okay, yes, it probably is. Good. So that must be right then. Okay, something else. Move along to the right there. Someone give me something else. I may come back to you, sir, in a moment. Come on, guys. Speak out.
People. Look after people.
Look after people. Wow, of course, a leader should look after people.
Information sharing, or we can say communication.
Communication, information sharing, fabulous. You're getting warmed up now, aren't you? Come on. Communicate the vision. Oh, of course. An organisation without the vision is going nowhere, isn't it? Right? Okay. What did you say?
Operations planning.
Operations planning. Yeah, could do. What about you?
Decision making.
Making decisions. Of course, big bosses have to make decisions. That's why they get paid the high money, because they have to make decisions. Good. Okay, anything else?
Direction setting, motivation.
Direction setting and motivation. Okay, I'll take a couple more, then I'm going to move on. Right. Anyone like to? Yes?
I would add situational leadership.
Situational leadership. So that's actually leading people in the context they find themselves in at that moment. Brilliant. Yes, sir.
Managing relationships.
Managing relationships. Very, very good. Right. Okay, good. Go on.
Company culture.
Company culture. Yeah, it's a good. How do we define company culture? That's going to be an interesting one. I might get a slide for that later on. Sorry.
Problem solving.
Problem solving. When things go wrong. Yes, problem solving. Right. Okay. First of all, I have to accept that every single word of wisdom you guys have given me this evening is probably true. But I'm going to ask now, can the person who wrote down look after and understand the customer stand up? Stand up. Show me the paper. Hey, what the customer want? We got 2. Yeah, we got 3. Productivity, capacity, customer satisfaction. Okay, that's interesting. Brilliant. Okay, first of all, can I congratulate you for even getting the word customer onto the piece of paper? So I'm now going to explain what I say are the key roles of a business leader in today's world, and specifically when related to improving the business. And it's this. The first thing they must do is to understand the needs and expectations of the customer and ensure that a business has been designed that will deliver those expectations. Drucker actually said, it is the customer that defines what the business is. So if it's not the senior leaders who understand the customer and design the system, the question you've got to ask is, who on earth does it? And if you don't have a business system that is working to satisfy the customer, very shortly you won't have a business that is being successful. So that's the first thing. And the whole essence of continuous improvement is that the customer is always and must remain central to the thoughts and beliefs of the leaders. As soon as the customer goes out of vision of the leaders, the business will lose the plot. Would anyone like to disagree with that theory?
But who defines the customer?
Who defines the customer?
Because it's a two-way thing. Because
Yep.
when you set up a business, you have to say, okay, I'm gonna sell something to X, Y people.
Yep. It is true. The senior leaders have to work out what is it that I want to offer to the world out there? Who are the customers that want this thing? Who are prepared to pay for this thing that I am going to create? But by definition, right, they've got to define who is their customer, what are the expectations, wants and needs at those customer bases, and to work a business system that's going to satisfy them. The reality of it is, without stopping and thinking about a customer, you can provide nothing. Right? So central to the thought must be providing an understanding for your customer. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing that we need them to do... Sorry, yes?
Sorry. When we talk about customers, are we talking about only external customers?
That's a very good question. Now, I haven't got a slide in this pack that talks about customers, but what I want you to think about in this case, for a senior leader, I want you to think about the primary customer, that's the person who takes the product or service that you're offering from your business, and that they will be external. So external and primary are going to be the ones immediately. Once you understand who your external customers are, you can design a system. And that business system will tell you who the internal customers are.
In case of oil and gas industry, usually companies have long-term customers and they don't have these kind of expectations. I mean, they only sell the oil.
Right.
So
this is oil companies you were saying, was it?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, there will be clearly a few customers, but take Shell, right? Take Shell, or any of the big oil companies. What is it they're selling to their customer? And that's the product they're giving to them. What is it they're selling?
The ability to
The quality.
power thing.
Power, right? They're giving them such power. So be very careful about tidying yourself down into this. You go back, you guys in this room are all far too young for this, but our cameraman over here will probably know where I'm going to be. Is that, do any of you remember the company called Kodak? Yeah. You heard about them, right? Their job was to provide film for cameras. They thought wrong. Their job was to provide a device that people could record pictorially the memories that they had of the day. We now have digital photography, and we don't have Kodak. Well, not in the scale we had them before, because film isn't there. So just be very careful, right? A customer, right, has certain things, but we're saying, understand the needs and expectations of the customer, and make sure you develop a system that delivers them. And there are many cases where we didn't understand the voice of the customer, and our business no longer exists. So that's one of the key things. Now, it's not very abstract, it's very straightforward. Who is the customer? What is it they want? What's the market they're in? And how will you service that requirement? If you're going to limit yourself to simply, we're going to provide oil, we're going to provide motor cars, when the world doesn't have any oil, you don't have a business. When the world doesn't need motor cars, you don't have a business. So just bear that in mind. What we want to do then is to continually monitor the performance of the system and sponsor improvement projects. We monitor the performance of our system, and if our system is failing to actually satisfy the customer needs or can be improved in efficiency or effectiveness, we respond to it by changing the business system. Right? And we do that through projects. And those projects should be led with a particular protocol and particular process. One of the mechanisms for doing that are Six Sigma projects, the lean Six Sigma projects. That is one way of doing it. Okay? And what the other thing they need to do is to manage the day-to-day operations of the system to obtain the best balance between efficiency, effectiveness, and flexibility. They have to ensure the management of the day-to-day operations to ensure the best balance between efficiency, effectiveness, and adaptability. I'm going to explore that a little bit further now with this next question, or a question I'm going to give you. This is the model that we actually use when we refer to the roles of top managers. Lead the system, system thinking. When you understand the system, and you understand the marketplace, and you will understand whether your processes and your business are working effectively. Therefore, then you should sponsor projects to improve. But there's something that has become really better known over the last 30 years than maybe decades back. But if you're doing improvement projects, if you cannot put them back into a day-to-day environment that will standardize, maintain, and improve those processes, very quickly the losses or the gains of the project are lost. So we need to ensure that you put back into the business processes that are standardized, that can be maintained, and from the process of standardizing and maintaining, we get the insight for continual improvement. So there'll be three roles that we're looking for the leaders to do in summary. First of all is to identify the customers and the market that the business needs to be in and design a system that will go to that. Monitor that market, monitor the system to understand how well it's performing and change that system in line with the changing needs of the marketplace and the customers. But to ensure that there is a day-to-day management system in place that will ensure that the processes are standardized, maintained, and continually improved. And without those three elements, Lean Six Sigma is really just an interesting activity. And when you come to run your businesses, being engaged in interesting activity may not make you profitable. Okay, so just think for a few moments then about a business, just quickly. And now again, write with your bold pen on a piece of paper some of the key performance indicators that you might be interested in as a leader of the business. Okay, so what might you think? Okay. Right, so some of the key things that you may be interested in. Okay.
Internally or externally?
I don't, what are they measuring? What are they measuring? I'm just interested in what are they measuring, right? It's a particularly vague question because I want to be vague. Okay, good. So having done that then, can I try at the top at the back there, would someone like to throw down one or two of the key performance measures that they may be interested in? Customer satisfaction and market share.
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Anything else? Who would like?
Profits, revenue, sales.
Profits, revenue, and sales. Very good. Very good. Very important. Yeah.
Productivity and efficiency.
Productivity and efficiency. Very good. Okay.
Quality of products and services.
Sorry?
Quality of products and services.
Quality of products or services. Yes. Okay. Yeah. It's an interesting measure.
Defect rate.
Defect rate. Anything else? Speed. So how quickly you do things. Okay, good. Anyone else like to throw anything that's different? Sustainability. Oh, that's a good one. That's broadening out from certain other aspects. But yes, I like that, sustainability. Any others? Sorry? EBIT. So earnings before interest and tax. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's what EBIT is for those of you that want to pick one. Sorry, delivery time. Anything else?
Net promoter score.
A net promoter score. I had to say, not my favourite subject matter, but yes, I'll accept you can do it if you like. Right? If you have to, you can do it. Right. So here's the thing. Key performance indicators can be categorised into three generic groups. Right? Three generic groups. The first one is efficiency. And that really relates to how much resource it takes to generate output. They're typically measures of cycle time, processing time, waiting time, per unit cost, rework cost, inspection cost, those sort of things. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. Then the effectiveness, and in some of this here is how well the process meets customer requirements. And these are typically measures of accuracy. They're going to be reliability, ease of use. It might be, does it damage society? So your CSI aspects of it probably fit into effectiveness. And the third and final category that we actually have is adaptability. And this is really, though, the measure which we don't see very often, but is that related to how quickly our business can change to the changing needs of customers. So flexibility, how good? Yes, sir.
Can I take a picture of the slide?
Yes. Yes, you can.
Also with you.
It reduces it. If you get me in it, it reduces in value on eBay. Right. So these are the typical ones. Now, just as a quick check with you. How many of you? I was going to get you to take, but there was a group here that gave me a lot that sounded to me very much like this category here. So, how many of you have got measures that would fit into the efficiency category? Put your hands up. Okay, very good. How many of you got those that fit into the effectiveness category? A few less of you. Okay, that's all right. And how many in adaptability? I'm willing to put a bet none of you. One of you. I think customer satisfaction is an indices, which is quite interesting. And actually, if you wish to put it into adaptability, I'm not going to argue with you. Here's the rule, though, that I'm going to say. So for those of you, and look at your list now, and if they are predominantly categorized as efficiency, right, it probably means that you are inward looking and are lacking sufficient focus on the customer. Right? It doesn't mean you shouldn't have them. It just means they should be well balanced between efficiency and effectiveness. So what we're looking for, it's critical that we have a balance between efficiency and effectiveness, because over-reliancy on efficiency, and this is unit cost, hour per hour rates, if you've got an over-reliancy on efficiency measures, it may mean you end up having a perfectly efficient system that is terribly ineffective at satisfying your customer. So I would encourage you to find a balance when you get those. So that's one of the key rules for it. Okay. So, when we come to business process improvement, it needs to be systematic, it needs to have methods and tools, it needs to be system-based. So, and by system-based, I mean understanding the business as a system, not just functionally based. It needs to be collaborative. It needs to have people involved. It needs to be learning focused. New knowledge will be required tomorrow to operate in a more efficient and more effective way. It will need to be objectives driven. If you are going to approach business improvement, there has to be a reason for why you're doing it. And that business has to be to either make the life of your customer better or the life of your business better, or preferably both. There has to be a reason for it. So there must be an objective that can be driven. And it must be continual. Once you've started, you will continually need to improve. It's not just about fixing problems of the day. The tools and techniques have been developing for centuries at least. Some of the theories we're going to talk about are over 100 years old this evening, over 100 years old, and some of the first principles go back even further. It should be built on high-level principles, not just accumulating tools. The tools of Lean and Six Sigma are all very interesting, but it needs to be based upon some higher-level thinking, and we'll touch that. So let's have a quick look at the history of Six Sigma. Now, if we go back far enough in time, this is now almost 100 years ago. Walter Schuhart worked to actually define some characteristics behind what a quality organisation would be doing and how to actually understand and interpret the data and the knowledge that's generated using every single day. So going back to 1919, 1920, when Walter Schuhart first created some understanding of that. And for how many of you actually use process performance charts or control charts or have been taught them? Okay, so a small number of you, a small number haven't, a larger number have. So you understand the concept of control charts and process performance measurement. Yeah? Great, good. Because I'm going to get you to do one in a little while. Okay? In 1950, W. Edwards Deming was involved in a group of activities which helped re-establish Japanese industry after the Second World War. He worked with a large number of consultants and leaders and worked with them to actually try to give them guidance as to how they could start to develop their industries after quite a devastating period in their history. And a little later, we actually see Teiichi Ono appear on the scene. Now, Teiichi Ono worked for Toyota, which was a company that made weaving machines, not motor cars, weaving machines. But they are now the same family of groups. That is the Toyota motor car. Now, Teiichi Ono worked with Deming, and he understood a lot of the management principles that came back. And out of that came the genesis of what we know today as the Toyota production system. You might have heard it referred to as Lean. Right? You might have heard it referred to as Lean. It is interesting, for those of you that may have been associated or ever worked within Toyota, they will never, ever use the word lean. Lean is a phrase which apocryphally came from an American student who wrote a thesis about working within Toyota. And he simply said, working in Toyota, the experience, and this is on his PhD thesis, he wrote a synopsis that says, in Toyota, you don't see lots of people around the organisation. You don't see lots of material. You don't see lots of work in progress. The Toyota system is very lean. And someone captured that, and that became the word. It's lean. But really what it's about, lean is about capturing the thinking, the beliefs, the tools, techniques, and leadership that were present in Toyota in the 1980s, 1990s. And they're still valid today, and we're going to look at those. So lean was something that came from the work that Deming did with them. A little later on, we had this gentleman by the name of Mario Perez Wilson, who worked with Motorola. Now, I'm going to describe a product, but I doubt, apart from myself and the cameraman in this room, we're the only two people who will ever seen one of these. If you go back to the 1980s and you look at Motorola and what they were producing products called radios and radio cassettes for automobiles. And they were made of things called solid state. Now, do any of you know when I talk about solid state, do any of you know what I mean? Right? The radios were made up of things like diodes and resistors, transistors. And there were thousands of these components that worked electronic wizardry, and they allowed certain things to happen. So they had any Motorola product could have up to 1,500 to 2,000 single components, single transistors, resistors, diodes in them. And that's what they made up. If you go find a radio, an old radio cassette, and open it up, it's got these lots of things. It looks like War of the Worlds. It's got lots of little components. Motorola made those, and they assembled them into larger components that are going to be radios or cassettes. Now, if you go back to Toyota, they, in the early 1980s, had this very strict rule that said that their process right first time should be, what do you think was a good figure for process right first time? How often should they get it right?
100%.
They should get it 100%. But most of the measures then were 99.9% right first time. So 99.9%, let's take 99.9% right first time. Most organisations would love to achieve that level of improvement, right? Would you agree? Right. If you've got 99.9% right first time in a process that's making a diode, how many diodes in 1,000 are wrong? 99.9%. Hey? About, I'll tell you what, I'll make it easy for you. 99.99% right first time means there's one. Yeah? Okay? Happy with that? Good. All right. Sorry about the hard maths. I know it's gone past 7:45. Right? So there's 1 in 1,000 at 99.9% right first time. Right? Brilliant. If I've got 2,000 components in my radio, is there a chance that I will get one of those components that's wrong? So is 99.9% right first time any good to Motorola? No. They had to come up with a different metric. They had to come up with a different way of thinking. They had to change the thinking of their leaders to say, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. This process has to be virtually 100% right first time. I cannot permit it to allow a defect out. Because if I have a process that's 99.9% right first time, and I've got 1,500 or 2,000 components in my radio, there's a high probability at the end of the line, my radio won't work. And what do I have to do then? I'll have to inspect it to find out whether it works. And from that inspection, I'll have to find out what's wrong with the ones that don't work, and I'll have to rework them. And that's very expensive. So that's what brought around the drive within Motorola, was a need to have a higher level of work, of improvement. So how many of you have seen Duran's Quality Trilogy? How many of you have seen this? How many of you have seen... Right, so not many academics of quality then in that case. Okay, so let me explain Duran's Quality Trilogy. Duran was a quality guru who was operating out of America in the 1960s. Well, he started in the 1950s, but became prominent in the early 1960s. And in his early writings in 1962, he proffered this as a concept, and its understanding is called the Quality Trilogy. Right? This is known as Duran's Quality Trilogy. He developed this in 1962. Just think about that, 1962. Even I might have just been a twinkle in someone's eye at that point. Right? What he actually said is in the quality planning phase of any product, and it doesn't have to be an engineering product, it could be a mortgage, right? It could be a restaurant menu, right? There will be a quality of the design. How good is the quality of the design? What's the quality of the process? What's the quality of the facilities? What's the quality of the training that supported the design of the process? And what's the quality of the suppliers? And there were a few others that he actually talked about. But when you're designing a product, you've got to be focused on the quality of the design, the quality of the process, and you focus on those things. And what that will do, that will enable you to launch your product into the market with an initial level of quality. And if you're a good company, you'll strive to make continual improvements, quality improvements in your product or process, which will mean that you move to a new zone of quality. Does that little model work for you? Does it work for you? Happy with it? Well, what Duran said is that then from the lessons learnt, you would feed back into the next time, so that when I design my processes, when I design my products, I've picked up from the lessons learned. And that what Deming said then after that is that if you look at it, anything that's below the line was effectively a representation of chronic waste. So the chronic waste that's in the business, either through process failure, through bad design, through bad training, any of those things are chronic waste. The world of Lean and Six Sigma is about understanding and eliminating that chronic waste. Okay? And we've got two little models in here. The eight waste, which is a function of the Lean, and we've got Taguchi's loss function over here. How many of you know anything about Taguchi's loss function? Yep, some of you will picked up on it. Right. Those basic theories, those concepts, are the ones that actually identify and eliminate chronic waste. So Lean and Six Sigma is about the understanding and the eliminating of chronic waste, be it caused by inefficient processing or because the variation of the process is too high, for either of those reasons. Okay? So the origins of Six Sigma, I'll go back as I've talked through. Oh no, let's do this one. So back in 1980s, Motorola needed to drive a comprehensive transformation. They chose a radical target to force the changes. And that's a Six Sigma process. A Six Sigma process will give you somewhere in the order of 3.4 defects per million. Okay? So 3.4 defects per million opportunities. And defects per million opportunities is DPMO. Okay? So they had to move away from 99.99% right first time because they were absolutely falling apart because they had too many radios that didn't work at the end of their line. So they brought around a new strategy, a new way of thinking that said, no, 99.9% right first time is absolutely no good. We must have processes that can deliver to us something in the order of less than 3.5 defects per million opportunities. If you do that, we'll probably be successful. And a process that is 3.4 defects per million is actually known as the Six Sigma process. It's a process that's performing to a degree of Six Sigma. Okay? That worked well for them in new product development and electronics. Motorola then publicised the benefits because they felt that they should tell their suppliers and they should tell the world about it because this is good stuff. You know, there's a different way of thinking, so they did. So others noticed and they made connections with the tools and with the results. And in the end of the 1980s, early 1990s, there was a raft of organisations setting out to do Six Sigma initiatives. The programs usually repaid their investment time several times over, once it was done correctly. Now, there are dozens and dozens of claims from people like me who go to conferences and speak at conferences and says, this is the thing you should be doing. Right? There are countless claims for them, for their efficiency and for their ability to problem solve. So it seemed to be the perfect answer for the world. It seemed to be. But one of the things that we've actually got here is a little graph, the ambition and impact. So on here, we've got this graphic that talks about impact on the organisation, negative, low or high, small and reducing, medium and static, large and maybe growing. This is the scale of activity that goes about. So where we're actually just using it as a measure or target, it will be small and reducing. Where we're using it as an improvement project and an approach and tool set, we will have a medium to static area. And if we're using it as leadership and management system, leadership and management believe in it, it will be large and growing and ever beneficial. So the whole point about this is that what we really need to have is a high level of focus from the leadership to lead these things. A group of people trying to do Six Sigma out in the business will have no benefit whatsoever. And just simply creating targets will have no benefit whatsoever. So let's have a little look at the Six Sigma target. How many of you come across defects per million opportunities before as a phrase? Okay, some of you, not many, again. A Six Sigma process will be achieving about 3.4 DPMO. Can I just check, how many of you understand the concept of CPK, CPK? Yeah, some of you? All of you? Process capability, yes, process capability, yep. So process capability, CPK. Right, a process capability, a process with a capability of a CPK equaling CP of 2 will be delivering around about 3.4 defects per million opportunities, right? That's what it should be doing. And you find now across many industries, the standards are that we want you to achieve a process capability of 1.667 or greater. So they're actually looking at trying to do that. So let's have a quick look at a DPM example. Here's a sales order. A defect is any error on that sales order. The defect opportunities could be customer identification number, customer address, total amount. So some data. There were 300 sales orders. That give us a sample size of 300. There were 900 defect opportunities at that point. And we have identified 32 errors. Right? So to calculate the DPMO, it's 32 divided by the 900, which gives us 0.36. Our yield is this, therefore, times 100 is 96.4. Our DPMO in 1,000 is 35,000, sorry, in a million is 35,556. So if I can make those sort of errors in a sales form, my DPMO is 35,000, shall we say. Let's have a quick look at how the scale of that comes down. There's our Six Sigma process right at the top with a DPMO of 3.4. I'm not going to go into the 1.5 shift that doesn't need to be done. But we've got here, down here, that process has a capability of 3.3. Right? So we can actually put some form of scale on it. Right? Thus, that's it. Now then, just have a quick look at this. Read through that. I'm not going to read through it all for you. I'm just going to bore you to death if I do that. But read through it and just have a look at it. Right. A 1 sigma process, right, if we give it a representative figure, is the floor space of the average factory. And I don't know whether any of you know what the average factory looks like, or maybe better still, right? It's 170 misspelled words per page in a book. So everyone, you might not understand a factory, but you might get a book, yeah? Okay? Right. A 2 sigma process is 25 misspelt words in a book, per page in a book. A 3 sigma process is 1.5 misspelt words in a book. A 6 sigma process is 1 misspelled word in all the books contained in a small library. Can you see the magnitude of change in there? And if you want to move across, there's lots of them on here, right? So, in money, 317.4 million indebtedness per billion of assets, down to £2 of indebtedness per £1 billion of assets. And there's lots of ways of looking at it. This is only giving you some scale. So the question we have to ask leaders in an organisation, what sigma do you want to be? Do you want to be 6 sigma, or are you happy at 2? All right, it's quite an important thing there. So if you don't mean a single figure, DPOs consider very carefully whether 6 sigma is the right name for you. If you don't want to achieve that degree, if you don't want to, when you're leading businesses, if you don't want to have that degree of improvement, then don't call it 6 sigma, because it's not. Okay, it's not. Now then, I'm going to now change tack a little bit. I'll give you a little bit of background behind Lean and Six Sigma and some of the words about it. I trust that you guys have the insight and the ability to go and research it far more than I can cover in this time. So I'm now going to take you through some first principles of what should be going on in the mindset and the beliefs of a leader that's operating a business that is doing Six Sigma. or that is carrying out Six Sigma. So I'm actually going to explain to you the thinking behind Deming's system of profound knowledge. Now again, can you help me? How many of you have experienced or explored Deming's system of profound knowledge? Couple down here, couple down here. Okay, so you know about it. Will you permit me to go through it in a little bit of detail for those that haven't? Yeah, is that okay? Good. And you can also, because you're slightly knowledgeable about it, you can tell me when I'm wrong. Okay, good. Good. I'm relying on you guys on the front here now. Okay, highly dependent. Right. Now, W. Edwards Deming spent his lifetime lecturing, teaching, coaching leaders, and developing theories about how businesses could be better managed. He's written some really, really very, very influential books, which even three decades after he died, are still relevant for today's businesses and industries. Right? They're still relevant. And if you haven't read his books, I would recommend that you actually pick them up. Right? Pick them up. They are well worth a read. But towards the end of his life, he was asked to summarize what his learning was from all the many decades he spent working with organizations, working with leaders. What were the key things he felt those leaders should understand if they were to try and drive and lead successful businesses? And he said this: the first thing they should understand is systems thinking. Understanding how to view a business as a system, and with a primary motivation to optimize the entire system. I'll explain a little bit more about that, but what we don't want an organization that has the best IT department in the world, which is undermining the design department, that doesn't support the production department. We want to optimize the entire business system. I don't want purchasing going out and finding the best and cheapest prices of everything if it screws up manufacturing. Right? So we want to optimize the entire business system. This next one, I didn't understand this many years ago when I was first taught. I was taught statistics at university. I loved statistics. It was absolutely fantastic. I actually went through university effectively twice, and I loved my statistics. T-test, F-test, wonderful. Chi-squared, fantastic. And then someone pointed out to me the basic concept of variation. And boy, what a silly Billy I felt. How could I know all this statistics and not understand the primary concept of understanding variation? So we're going to do a little experiment with you guys in a little while. We're going to explore the primary concept behind variation and what it really means. Okay? So understanding variation. But more importantly, knowing how to react to that variation. Knowing how to react to it. That's the important thing. Then there's this thing about theory of knowledge. Using theories to learn. You heard me use earlier on, I said, I have a theory that this is my idea of quality. It is currently a theory. Tomorrow it could change. Theories should change. The things we believe and know today, maybe we shouldn't know them and believe them tomorrow. Maybe we should have changed those theories. Maybe we should have updated our learning. This is the scientific learning model. You might know it as Plan, Do, Check Act. Deming modified it after the TQM of the 1980s to Plan, Do, Study Act, because unfortunately when we taught people in Europe and in America the Plan, Do, Check Act stuff, they completely misunderstood check. And if I've got time this evening, I'll explain what it means. And then the final element of this was developing intrinsic motivation. We want leaders to believe that every individual that walks through their doors of their offices, through their academies, through their universities, every single employee that works through the door, every single day, is truly intrinsically motivated. They were born with intrinsic motivation. Most humans want to do good. They want to show that they have value. They want to be good. They want to do good things. The reason they don't is often because of the things that we do in our organisations that get in the way. So what we want our organisational leaders to do is to develop intrinsic motivation. Stop getting in the way of people's intrinsic motivation. Did anyone on the list, right, when I asked earlier on, what's the key things that people do? Did anyone write down motivation?
What about commitment?
Commitment, I think commitment's slightly different. Commitment is allied to motivation. But anyone write down motivation?
Yeah.
Right. Des has got a theory. I've yet to prove it because I don't have sufficient data, but this is my theory. I do not believe that a manager can motivate anybody. Right? I believe you are all intrinsically motivated. What I can do as a leader is remove the barriers that are preventing your intrinsic motivation from flowering. I can't motivate you. If you don't want to come to work and do a good job, nothing I'm going to do. I might be able to apply a short-term extrinsic motivator to you, which might shock you into it. But the reality of it is you are all intrinsically motivated. And if you're not motivated when you come to work, it's probably because of a barrier that I, the leader, have put in place. I should understand how to remove that barrier. Now, that's my theory. I'm quite happy for people to try and give me evidence that would prove that to be wrong. Right? Quite happy. Okay? So, Deming said psychology, developing intrinsic motivation. Now, those dimensions can't be separated. They are linked together. And we're not expecting you to be master statisticians or psychologists or learning academics or even big system thinkers. But if you've got to have an appreciation of all of those things. So let's have a quick explore. Optimizing the business of a system. Just have a quick look at that. How many of you worked in organizations where that might be true? Right? Yeah? Recognize it? Right. I'm really glad the hole in my end of the boat. What's the problem with that, though? Right? The boat's sinking, isn't it? Right. So someone sat in finance saying, oh, I'm glad it's manufacturing that are getting the problems, not me. Incredibly myopic. Terrible way of looking at it. The other thing about it is this one here, is that you often find organizations are structured where they go, where functions. So you have sales and marketing. You have information systems, you have operations, you have finance, you have HR, you have functions in the business. And each function tries to optimize itself. Destined for failure. What we want to try and get is a progression that moves to a situation where over here, the customer is understood, we understand the principal processes that support and deliver what that customer wants, and each function understands their role in delivering that. And that will be systems thinking. Okay? When we understand our role in the processes that deliver what the customer wants. Okay? That's the basic premise behind it. So over here, no sense of system, variation across functions, geography, those sort of things. Over here, standardized, customer-focused processes, standard approach to learning, and continual improvement. And I'm going to move on. That's how you often see organizations represented as a system, as a hierarchy like that. Can you tell me who's missing on that list? And by the way, as a sample, it's not every single department, but I'll tell you who it is. We never see the customer mentioned in a hierarchy. You never once see the customer in an organization chart. That's rather bad. If you don't see the customer in it, what role do they have in the organization? So this is what Deming said back in 1950. 1950, Deming created that little picture when he was working with the Japanese Institute of Technology. Right? And he calls them, this one here is, we have consumers. We have a distribution and delivery system. We have processes that create the products and services that the consumer wants. We may have tests of processes and machines that serve those things, and we have inputs from suppliers. If we've got consumers, we should be doing some consumer research. From those consumer research, we should both be redesigning the product and the business that is delivering that service. Now that was back in 1950. In 1993, in his words, he actually gave us that definition of it. The definition of a business as a system is a network of interdependent components which work together to achieve the aim. Okay? We understand the business as a system something like this now. We have customers that want outputs. We have core processes with inputs and suppliers. We refer to that as the value stream. The value stream is supported by support and enabling processes. There should be a processes for generating information from the system and the wider environment. We should be able to lead the organisation on its ongoing transformation. And we should be able to implement strategic improvements. And that's the business as a system. Now we need to be able to deploy that process in some way. And I have to say, my experience of working with businesses across the world, this is the bit they get dramatically wrong. They have processes and procedures that are documented. They satisfy ISO 9000. They satisfy ISO 14000 and all those other lovely, lovely standards that we must have as quality professionals. Right? But they don't link the business system with the tasks that are being carried out. And all too frequently, people are carrying out tasks at the bottom level of the process, which are not linked to the needs and wants of the top end of the process. So we need to have a system. How do we deploy processes? How do we deploy the system down to the daily tasks that you and I as individuals are going to be carrying out? And that's one of the biggest information areas that we get. I think I've got time to explore variation. So I'm going to explore variation with you, and we'll do the experiment for variation. And that's probably where we'll have to leave it tonight, because we'll be up against 9 o'clock at that point. So knowing and understanding how to work to variation. This is what Deming said about variation. Now I read this and I chuckle every single time, because if I put Yoda's voice in my head and read that. So you all know who Yoda is, don't you? Yeah, from start, yeah? Yeah? A warrior he shall be. Right? Read that in a Yoda voice. Okay? You'll just remember it better. Okay? Variation there will always be. Between people, in output, in service, in product. What's really important though, what is that variation trying to tell us? What's that variation trying to tell us? The variation we see in our processes, in our designs, there's a story in there that's screaming to get out. And as leaders, we frequently ignore it. So how will we understand what the variation is trying to tell us? And I just want to actually be clear on this one here. Variety and variation are two totally different things. Variety is great. Variety is great. When I buy my 1 litre bottle of soda or water, I want it because I want a litre of it. I might want a half litre. I might want a third of a litre. That's variety. But when I buy my 1 litre bottle, I want it to have 1 litre in it. I don't want more than 1 litre. I certainly don't want less than 1 litre. I want 1 litre. So the content within it, the variation is when we wanted it to be the same. Okay? So I just want to make sure that we understood what that is. Variety is fantastic. Variation might be a problem. We might explore that. Okay, so to do that, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to take part in an experiment with me. Would you be prepared to do that? How many of you have done the red bead experiment before? Small number of you? Excellent, that's good. Okay, so I'm going to do a little experiment which is going to involve you. It's going to mean a small number of you joining me here down at the front and the rest of you observing. Happy with that? Good, excellent. Good. So I have 12 vacancies available. I'm Des. I've just set up a brand new business just down the road from Warwick University. I've got some really good vacancies that you guys can come and work for. I'm a really nice employer, honestly, right? I think of all of the things that you guys hoped I would think of. So I've got 12 vacancies. Educational requirements are absolutely minimal. Okay, absolutely minimal. So I need 2 recorders. Now those are people that simply need to be able to write with those coloured pens that I gave you earlier on. Okay, you just need to be able to write. Okay. I need 1 data analyst. Now this is a person that needs to be able to perform simple arithmetic. Very simple arithmetic. It's a bit like adding up and dividing. If you've got your Apple iPhone or your phone with you, you're perfectly entitled to do that. A nice graphic. Right? Okay. I need 1 chief inspector. The only skill that the chief inspector needs to be able to do is to look at 2 figures and be able to compare them and speak in a loud voice. Okay? I need 2 junior inspectors, and they need to be able to count. Probably up to 20, probably. If you can count up to 15, you'll probably get a chance of doing the junior inspector job if you can. Right. And then I need 6 willing workers. I need 6 people who need no educational background at all, need no skills or competencies whatsoever, right? Because I'm going to provide training, but you need to be willing and able to obey instructions without question. Happy with that? Good. Okay. So, let me see now then. I think before I do that, I've got a pre-interview test for candidates within the Red Bead Unlimited. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, and I need my phone for this because this is critical. This is absolutely critical. We've used this test for the last 35 years, as far as I'm aware. It's a very simple test. It works out those of you that can be working in the quality department and those of you that can't. Right? There will be some of you in here simply are not of the right characters to work in the quality department. Right? You'll have to just be satisfied with being simply willing workers. So I'm going to have to get my stopwatch on this. There we go. Got my stopwatch. I've got my stopwatch here. Brilliant. So in a moment, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do to you is this. I am going to show to you a sentence. Right? Now, unfortunately, it's an English written sentence, and I need you to be able to look and count how many letter F you can see. Happy with that?
In a certain text, right?
No, it will be, it's going to be a sentence, and the sentence will have words in it, and some of those words will be constructed using alpha characteristics, and one of them will be an F. Okay? I want you to tell me how many letter Fs you can see. We put because it's a quality inspection, you have a limited amount of time for it. I want you to be able to count them, and don't be influenced by anyone that sat around you, because they probably can't count as well as you. Their eyesight might not be as good as you. I want you to count how many Fs there are and write down the number of Fs you can see on your sheet of paper. Don't show it to the person next to you. And when I ask, I'm going to ask, how many Fs did you see? I'm going to go through the list. I want those of you that counted that number to put it up. We've used this test for a number of years. We now know that people with your academic background need about 12.3 seconds to study the sentence to get the optimal response. Okay? Anything less than 10.3 seconds doesn't work, and anything more is of no value. It's just wasting time because you've lost interest by that time. Okay? Senior managers, senior directors need about 16 seconds. Okay? So I'm going to give you 12.3 seconds. After 12.3 seconds, the screen will go blank. Okay? And then I'm going to ask you the question. How many letter Fs did you see? You okay with that? Excellent. Okay, good. So, 1, 2, 3, go. Doesn't 12.3 seconds go quickly when you're enjoying yourself? Right, so now then, help me if you will do, please. This is by way of pre-interview, remember. This is for people who are going to work in my quality department. Okay, right, so how many of you saw 1? How many of you saw 2? 2. Excellent, thank you very much indeed. Excellent. How many of you saw 3? Put it up, hold up. Yeah, you've got to hold up the number 3. Okay, excellent. 3. Sorry, keep it up. Sorry, I didn't count them. Hold up, how many 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of you. Lovely. How many of you saw 4? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 again. How many saw 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of you. Nice. Very good. Very good. How many saw 6? 1. 2? 2 people saw 6. Okay. Okay, how many saw 8? Oh, 7, sorry. You saw 7. 2 saw 7. How many saw 8? You saw 8. Right. Did anyone count any more than 8? It is a joy always to come and work here at the university because it always throws up something quite remarkable. Right. Now then, can I just confirm, you were all watching the same statement, weren't you?
But reading at different speeds.
Hey?
But reading at different speeds.
Reading at different speeds. But hang on, that was a test that's been done for the last 35 years. We know that people in your organisation read at a certain speed. But can you just tell me how some people saw 2 and some people saw 8? Right? Okay, now there is a moral in here. I am sat in front of some of the brightest people. Genuinely, you must be in the top 2 or 3% of intellect in this country, and probably the country that you come from if you're not a native of the UK. Right? You are here because you're incredibly bright. Right? And I'm not blowing smoke anywhere for that one. That is the truth. That is why you're here. Right? So remember this when you go and work with your organisations. Let's have a quick look then at the process. Right, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. 5. Where?
There.
Oh, there. 6. Could you stand up, sir? The guy that got it right. The guy that got it right. Will you please stand up, sir? Ladies and gentlemen, and the lady up there, please. Lady up there that got it right, stand up. Please look around, ladies and gentlemen. I'd love to put the camera on you. We can't. Right? Can you please give these 2 wonderful people a round of applause? Excellent. Could you join me down here now, please? You now have just earned yourself the high-ranking job of quality inspector. Right, okay. Now then, I just want you to actually bear something in mind on that. We had something in the order of 10, 20, 30, 35 people with high intellect doing 100% inspection, right? 100% inspection of the same document. Those letters didn't change around while you were watching it. Right, so 100% inspection. And I have to say, I've never seen a result like that before. That's the first time that's ever happened, right? But it just goes to show, 100% inspection, how effective is it? Right? I've got the brightest people from the top 2% of intellect, right? 100% inspection of that sentence to check for a certain characteristic. How effective was it? Clearly not effective. So one of the morals I want you to take away from here is inspection is not a way of proving quality. Right? It is absolutely not. There are lots of stories about how effective 100% inspection is, but I'm not aware of any detailed study that has proven it one way or the other. But what we do know, and I can guarantee to you, from 45 years of working in industry and in commerce, inspection does not work.
Yeah, exactly. Like because nobody will disclose that it does not work. So there will be never a study
right.
which will say.
But there's a little scientific study for you, isn't it? Hey. So there's something else in here I can actually tell you now then. So the answer is clearly, if you look at that data on there, and I just normalise it and I have a look at it, there's 4.9 Fs in that statement. 4.9. Just work it out, okay?
And it's still wrong.
Right? Of course it is. What's the value of an average?
Yeah.
Yeah? If I look at that there, is the average 6? How many were on the wall? So counting the data and getting an average, what value is it? Not a lot. Not a lot. So how many of you use averages to prove a case? How many? Just a question. Right? When I talk to industry leaders, they use it an awful lot. Right? So that's just a little bit. Can I just thank you for well done? I am very impressed. I am very impressed over there. That's hugely impressive. So I've now got my two. I've got my 2 inspectors. So I'm just going to back up to this one here. Let me back up. Right. So I've got my 2 junior inspectors. Can I have 6 willing workers, please? 6 people who are just prepared to be taught how to do something and follow my instructions. You must approach the box this way. I want you to insert the paddle slowly into the box and do a very slight adjustment. The red, I'm afraid, are defects. The white are what we want. However, it is what's want. Our customer has given us a tolerance. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is rather surprising because our customer has given us a specification. If in every batch there are 9 or less red beads, the batch is acceptable. Okay? So we know with its raw material you can't get it right every single time. So 9 or less. I want you to pay attention to that, 9 or less. It's not impossible. Right? In fact, I did it the first time. Right? So I had a paddle full of white. How would you know that that is rather surprising? Because there's a number of red beads in this box and a number of white. And I'm taking a fixed sample every single time. So it's pure chance as to the number I'm going to get. Right? But the benefit you guys had, you could see the box and you could see what was going on inside the process. So you understood that this was pure chance. If you couldn't see the box and you didn't know how it was working, what would you know? You'd have to work on data. You'd have to work on data. But is data any good in this circumstance?
No.
Right? No. Okay. In this one here, the actual surprise would be, this is an individual moving range chart. It's a bit of a very basic statistical tool, but it's almost like the Swiss Army knife for people. So what we've simply done is to plot each of the results that the team had got. So over here, right, I said here, things have got worse. I elected not to comment on that. But if you were to see that graph, what would you be predicting as a manager? It is true, is it not, that that is worse than that? It is true, is it not, that that is worse than that? Because look, I've got a load of worse data points. But how can it have got worse? Because it was pure probability, it was pure chance. But that's because you know it, right? And even though you guys are intelligent, wise individuals, you felt an emotional problem. You wanted to cheat, even though you knew that this whole thing was just chance and almost a game. You felt the need to cheat to please me. That's exactly what happens out in the big wide world in organisations. People will try to achieve what they need to achieve by cheating the process if they have to. And even though they may get the result, they'll feel fantastic one day and they'll feel really bad the next, purely because of chance. This process has the whole process in this one here All the variation that we saw in those results is coming from common cause variation. There is no way we can assign a reason to it. So we use something called a process performance chart or a control chart to actually tell us what it is. So this is an individual moving range chart. How many of you come across, who's done statistics, individual moving range? Done that? X bar and R? Right. How many done control charts? Quickly put your hands up. Right. What is the purpose of a control chart?
To understand how the process is going.
To understand how the process is going. Lowest and highest. There is only one purpose for a control chart.
Common, special.
Sorry?
Common versus special.
Wow, well done. Full marks. There is only one purpose for a process performance chart cannot control the process. Right? Only your actions as a manager can control the process. Yeah? It's to tell you the difference between common cause variation and assignable cause variation. That's the only purpose for a control chart. And we use a control chart to determine. Now, I was a red bead manager. I was using the data. Look at that process there. That process is free of assignable cause. I'm only going to give you two ideas of what an assignable cause could be. A run of 8 above the line, right? Or one point out of the control limits on either of the charts. And in there, 1, 2, that one doesn't, that's not, so I've not got a run of 8. And I haven't got a run of 8 because the graph will show me. I guarantee you I haven't. It would show me if it had because it puts a big red square on it. Okay, what it's actually seeing is it's sat on the line. It's not actually over the line, so it's sat on the line. It's sat on the line. So a run of 8, either side of the X bar, or one part outside of the control limits, signals assignable cause variation. So if I was to get, right, how many reds are in there now? Well, an awful lot because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in 50. That means there's 37. There's 37 red beads there. If I was to put 37 on this little graphic, if I was to go to my data, right, data, what was the figure I said it was? 37. Let me come over here. Sorry, I can't see my screen. $37. Just going to go back to my charts. Right, I've now got, if I look at that graphic, right, my chart's saying, that's a surprise, Des. You shouldn't have got that. What was the reason for it? Because I dropped some of the beads. So when we're looking at control charts, we're looking at the information, and what Deming was looking for when he said understanding variation, is that you as leaders would understand the difference between common cause variation and assignable cause variation. I hear the words whispered down here, special cause variation. In the early days, it was called special cause variation. That's absolutely true. In the early days, Shewhart referred to it as special cause. Latterly, people like people like Don Wheeler and Deming himself actually changed the name from special to assignable because it referenced more closely you could assign a reason for it. You could assign a reason for it. Under the common cause variation, could anybody tell me why Alex got a 4 or why Vicky got a 16? Can you? Sorry?
I have a theory.
You have a theory?
Yeah, Alex and Vicky are both Greeks, they're lazy.
But Alex got a 4.
But then 16.
Yeah.
Got lazy.
Right.
Lazy.
Right. This is a classic example of a red bead manager generating a reason for common cause variation when indeed he should not be seeking one.
But you know, there must be some reason, because if you can control, if you can, like if you have like 6 sigma or 2 sigma process,
Yep.
obviously there is some reason behind why.
You are absolutely correct.
You can somehow find the reason or like.
Right. So, let's have a quick look at this then. If I was to draw a little picture, in fact I can do it using this one. What was the specification that the customer gave me?
9.
So anything less than 9. So shall we say between 0 and 9? Okay, let's have a look at the data that he actually gave us. I'm going to go back to my data. Right, I'm just going to go back to that one there. We didn't get 37, did we? So I'm going to delete that. We didn't get it. So I don't want to cheat the data. I'm then going to come and say, let's have a look at capability. So just going to simply look over here. The lower specification was 0. The upper specification was 9. Right? And I'm now going to look at that. That's why it's looking good. 9. Right. Now then, this, if I look at this here, this is the customer specification. Right? That's the lower spec limit. That's the upper spec limit. This is the control limits that were generated from my control chart. This is my upper control limit. And this is my lower control limit. So there were no assignable cause signals on my chart, which is suggesting that all of that distribution, roughly speaking, is all common cause variation. What is the only thing I can do with a process that's got only common cause variation in to improve it? Is shouting out the data going to work? Is firing people going to work? Is running a quality guru session going to work? No. So if none of these things are going to work, what have you got to do? Perfect answer. Redesign the process. It's the process that's wrong, not the people. So Alex, when you felt good, you really shouldn't have done. And Vicky, when you felt bad, you most certainly shouldn't have done. Because all the variation in that process comes from common cause variation. And all of the theories that I was generating, they seemed quite legitimate, didn't they? Right? I brought out a brochure and the results got better. The problem with British and European managers has been for many years. They'll assign a cause to common cause variation where there is none. There is absolutely no reason at all for me claiming that rewarding Alex caused him to perform badly. The data says he did. And we can actually say, that's a theory Des has got. I've got data that proves my theory. When I looked at Tevin and I said to him, he got better. I've got data that proves my theory. But I'm a red bead manager. I don't understand variation. That's why Deming said in his system of profound knowledge, understand the system and understand variation. The other things he was looking at were plan, do, check, act. We haven't got time tonight to go through plan, do, check, act. We haven't got time to go through psychology. If you would like to come back some other night, and Megillus would like to actually do it, we do it. So I've got some final slides to finish on, then we'll finish on some questions. All right? So let me just get rid of that. Let me just get rid of that. And get rid. No. Right, I've got to try and find my cursor again, which is where. This is interesting. I can't get the cursor to come back to my computer. Oh, got it. Excellent. Right. So that was an interesting little bit. But how many of you saw, look at the results you got there. 100% inspection, not really valid. Right? Bear that in mind. We need a more intelligent way than inspection for doing it. Measuring and understanding the data that is generated from the process is one way of doing it, and we can show it on a control chart. Right? There's an interesting one, look. That's someone who couldn't count the number of Fs. Right. Right. Final words on it. Common cause variation. Common cause variation is always present. It's normally due to the design, the inputs and the operation of the process. It's impossible to assign any particular reason for common cause variation. Assignable cause variation, specific change or changes occur in the inputs of the operation of the process. It can be fleeting or short term. So the two types of variation that if you just take away from tonight as a leader that you must understand, and if Six Sigma is going to be of any value to you as an organisation, if you don't understand the basis of variation, then you will never be a leader with wisdom. You'll simply be a manager with data. And don't simply be a manager with data. Right? Even simple processes generate considerable variation in output, even when no recognizable changes occur. Reacting inappropriately to the variation, reacting inappropriately is me responding to a piece of common cause variation as though it were assignable, giving people awards, telling them off. That's acting inappropriately to the variation. Me acting inappropriately to the variation can only make things worse. I disappointed you. I put you against me. You could only end up disliking a manager that treated Tevin the way that Tevin was treated there. Because Tevin knew it wasn't his fault. He knew it. So I can only make things worse. Right? It's crucial that the leader has a robust understanding of variation. If you guys don't have a robust understanding of variation before you leave this wonderful facility, not tonight, but by the time you finish your degrees or your masters or your PhD, whichever one you're doing, please try to pick it up. It will be very important. Without a fundamental understanding of variation, it's impossible for a leader to capably generate theories about what might be going wrong and generating solutions for it. Here's something I've learned over the last 45 years. If you don't understand the difference between common cause variation and assignable cause variation, you will never, ever be able to solve a problem. You might be able to put a bandage on it, but you'll never solve it. Right? It's an absolute key thing. So the two types of mistake that we've got, tampering, which is treating common cause variation, or assuming a common cause variation is due to assignable cause. So I started earlier on this evening with this slide. And at the bottom of it, I told you a little bit about myself and my history. And I said, one piece of wisdom I have gained from 45 years that I will share with you now is this. Never let data make a decision. Never, ever use data to make a decision. That's only part of the story. Never, ever use data to make a decision unless or until it has been correctly analysed.